YNW Melly is going through it. He's been behind bars for nearly 6 years, still battling a double murder case that just won't go away. And now, as his bond hearing gains momentum, an old clip of him talking about his alter ego, Melvin, is going viral again.
When the night hits, he really come, and it's like, Melvin is just like, once you play with Melly to a certain extent, Melvin just don't like that. Melvin on your ass.
T might sound like typical Melly behavior, but fans believe he revealed more than he intended. A brief clip that's now circulating online is just one part of a much longer moment that's being dissected frame by frame. And some people believe it could change the entire perspective on this case. Let's break it all down. Any real conversation about YNW Melly's trial has to include how the rapper has been acting in court recently. People first started noticing his unusual behavior on the third day of trial. That's when he was seen sitting with his hands folded in prayer, eyes closed, and mumbling to himself. Then he opened his eyes and began blowing kisses to the gallery. One person who noticed and wasn't happy was Juvie's mother, Leandria Phillips. She later spoke with NBC Miami and said, "You did it a couple times. That wasn't his first time. I walked out because what are you even praying for? You sit there like you got no remorse. Every time I walk in, you're smiling. This ain't the time for that. This is serious." Melly's odd courtroom behavior didn't stop there. He was also caught laughing and joking with his lawyer multiple times. In another strange moment caught on video, he appeared to make eye contact with someone in the gallery and began repeating the same phrase over and over while becoming visibly agitated. Naturally, the internet had mixed reactions. While many felt Melly was showing a disturbing lack of concern, especially for someone facing the death penalty, others argued that after being locked up since early 2019, this might be Melly's new normal. What makes his behavior even more confusing is that on the first day of trial, Melly was seen wiping away tears as footage of his late friends played in court. Whatever's going through his mind, one thing is clear: the evidence is stacking up. Testimonies from medical examiners and Sergeant Williams match law enforcement's original claim that Melly pulled the trigger. And here's the chilling part. Florida law no longer requires a unanimous jury decision for the death penalty. Under Governor Ron DeSantis' ruling, only 8 of 12 jurors need to vote in favor for it to be imposed. If convicted, YNW Melly could become one of the first people sentenced to death under this new law. That makes the jury's site visit and every piece of evidence they've seen extremely important. So what do we know so far? Phone data shows all 4 men, Melly, Bortlen, Sackchaser, and Juvie, were together just 15 minutes before Bortlen arrived at the hospital with the 2 victims. But Melly was not in the car when Bortlen showed up. Prosecutors allege that after the murders, Melly contacted Fredo Bang to pick him up. Meanwhile, testimony from Felicia Holmes opened a door for the defense to file for a mistrial. If Melly is found guilty, there's a chance an appeal could go all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. Another key point: Melly had a history of conflict with Sackchaser. Just months before the murders, he was heard asking his mother for a .40 caliber gun, the same type used in the killings. Prosecutors have struggled to pin down a clear motive, trying to tie the case to gang violence with testimony from Detective Danny Polo. But technically, a motive isn't required, and the medical examiner's testimony still supports the forensic evidence from way back in 2019. However, the murder weapon has never been found, a major missing piece in an otherwise strong case. Now let's talk about 2 major developments outside of court that might shed even more light. In April 2020, Melly requested house arrest after contracting COVID-19. The judge denied his request. Oddly enough, 1 month later, that same judge granted house arrest to Bortlen, who was facing first-degree murder and accessory after the fact. According to Bortlen's lawyer, while his client was granted house arrest, Melly remained behind bars. Since then, Bortlen has been more or less free, while Melly's been locked up in harsh conditions. In early 2023, reports emerged that Bortlen told police he was just the driver. His own trial is set for October, which gives the prosecution time to tighten its case. If the prosecution argues only one shooter was involved, something already backed by testimony, it could create a dangerous dynamic between Melly and Bortlen. Will Melly try to shift the blame? Will Bortlen cut a deal and testify? If they were willing to stage a drive-by to cover up the killings, then anything's possible. Back in October 2020, the families of Sackchaser and Juvie filed a wrongful death lawsuit against both Melly and Bortlin. The suit claims the four were expecting a large payday but couldn't agree on how to split it. Money, after all, is one of the oldest motives. According to the suit, the group planned to sell the YNW brand for marketing and licensing purposes. Sackchaser and Melly were set to earn $200,000 each. Juvie, however, would only receive $100,000 from the $500,000 deal. Juvie's father supported this theory and was clear in his belief that Melly was behind his son's death. With each passing day, new revelations continue to reshape this case. Whether it's courtroom behavior, past conflicts, new laws, or broken alliances, one thing is clear. This trial is far from over, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
The day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son's death on October 26th when I first heard the story. His explanation, when I finally talked to him in court on FaceTime, their response and how they were reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost their best friend or nothing. They was having, in my opinion, they were the best spirits. They never came to town, never came to my son's funeral.
If these claims turn out to be true, and there really was a deal on the table, it completely shifts the dynamic between the four men. They weren't just longtime friends. They were business partners caught in a serious dispute over their brand, with a large amount of money at stake. But here's the thing. At least for now, this second lawsuit hasn't played a role in the ongoing trial. As it stands, the prosecution is still trying to piece together what happened in the crucial hour between the group leaving the recording studio and Bortlin arriving at the hospital in October 2018. In the process, courtroom testimony from experts and other key evidence has painted a chilling picture of Melly as someone who may have coldly executed two of his closest friends over a financial disagreement. A few months after the deaths of Sackchaser and Juvie, a documentary on Melly explored his bond with both men. He had called Juvie his day one, even saying, "We got the same brain. Me and all my brothers had the same dream growing up." But somewhere along the way, did Melly decide his dream mattered more than theirs? And if so, did that decision lead him to kill them? As the trial unfolds, we'll likely hear even more shocking revelations about YNW Melly. But right now, it's anyone's guess how this will all play out. With surveillance footage, alleged confessions, and gang affiliations looming in the background.
In the case of a double murder in Miramar?
Two people now behind bars, including a South Florida rapper who actually sings a popular song about murder.
Jamal Maurice Demons, better known as YNW Melly, was charged with the murders of his two close friends, Anthony Williams, known as YNW Sackchaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., aka YNW Juvie. He turned himself into police on February 13th. That same day, the Miramar Police Department tweeted, "Jamal Demons, aka YNW Melly, and Cortland Henry have been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr."
One individual specifically sends out, and I want to quote the message exactly, but you will hear. "Yo, homie, you good?"
YNW Melly's response was chilling, and it could play a key role in the outcome of his case. His reply paints him in a guilty light, as it appears he may have unknowingly confessed to the murder. According to the prosecutor, Melly responded to a direct message with just 3 words: "I did that." Did this message really prove that Melly was responsible for killing his 2 best friends, people he had grown up with? It's important to remember that Melly is facing the death penalty, which means the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he confessed to the murders in that Instagram text. The first issue that comes up is the context in which the message was sent. It's entirely possible the rappers were talking about something unrelated. However, the prosecution dismissed that possibility, arguing that the only reasonable context for the message was the shooting that had occurred earlier. They pointed out that Melly had been receiving a flood of messages that morning, all centered around the tragic incident.
The context around the messages matters. So in the context of this message, this individual is reaching out, asking if Mr. Demons is good, after he's been tagged in multiple social media posts about his tragedy. This
According to the prosecutor, since everyone in Melly's DMs was asking about the alleged drive-by, that would have been the only thing he was responding to. However, the defense presented a well-crafted argument regarding the text. One small detail in that message may have been what saved Melly's life. As it turns out, autocorrect could be his saving grace. The defense pointed out that the spelling of a specific word in the message didn't match how Melly typically spelled it in other texts, suggesting it may not have come from him at all.
Will you tell the jury how he spells that?
Did this mean someone else was using YNW Melly's phone? Was it even his phone to begin with? Or did his friends have access to it as well? Investigators worked to uncover the truth behind these questions. As the case developed, prosecutors presented evidence proving that the phone did, in fact, belong to Melly. Detectives reportedly discovered photos of a Western Union receipt containing Melly's name and phone number, directly linking the device to him.
When Melly spells the word that, you want me to go through all 19 pages? That every time, he does not spell it T-H-A-T, but D-A-T.
However, one of Melly's friends, Adrian Davis, who was with the group at the studio, took the stand and made a shocking revelation. According to Davis, the morning after they received the devastating news that their friends had been shot and killed, everyone immediately rushed to check their phones. But strangely, Melly couldn't find his.
The print down at the bottom of this Western Union.
It says Janelle Devons, 604 9th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida, 32962, USA, phone number 772-713-98.
This raised a major question. Where was Mellier's phone during this time? If he didn't have his phone when the incriminating text was sent, then who did? While testifying, Davis explained that multiple people often used Mellier's phone. In fact, the whole crew frequently borrowed each other's phones. He said, "We all use this phone sometimes. We all use each other's phones." So where exactly was Mellier's phone? The prosecution appeared to answer that. They presented cell phone data detectives had used to track Mellier's phone that morning. First, detectives confirmed that Mellier had his phone when leaving the studio. CCTV footage showed him leaving the building with his phone in hand. Melly and his crew left the studio in 2 cars, and the police tracked the phones from both vehicles throughout the morning. The phone in the red Mitsubishi showed it headed towards Sunset Lakes, while the phone in the gray Jeep took a different route. To verify the accuracy of this data, the prosecution pointed out that Melly's and Sack Chaser's phones were the same make and model. They also shared the same cell phone plan, meaning both phones connected to the same service provider and cell towers. If the data was accurate, the movements of the 2 phones should have been similar. During the trial, the prosecution compared the phone's information to track the vehicles. Detectives showed the Jeep traveled up to Pines Boulevard, then headed west toward the edge of the Everglades. According to the prosecution, this area is extremely isolated. The Jeep continued further south, turning onto Pinroke Road, a dead-end street that ends at a trash facility with no houses nearby. There were no cameras to visually track the vehicle, no streetlights, and no passers-by, making it an ideal location to commit the murders unnoticed. Furthermore, the prosecution revealed that no other cell phones were detected on Pinroke Road that morning. This strongly suggests the 4 rappers were alone that night.
Did anyone get on their phone?
Yeah.
Did anyone have any problem locating the phone?
Yes.
Who was that?
Janelle.
Later, the prosecution revealed even more damaging evidence. Melly had made a FaceTime call to his then-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton. This was confirmed by Mariah's mother, who was also at the house when the call came through. Mariah screamed during the call, waking her mother, who then went to check on what was happening. After ending the FaceTime call, the rapper sent a pin location at 4:42 a.m. to Frederick Given, better known as Fredo Bang, a fellow rapper from Louisiana. So, who is telling the truth? Did Melly's friend lie under oath? Or was the data from the cell phone towers inaccurate? Adrian Davis had a lot more to say while testifying about that morning when they left the studio. According to his testimony, Melly was with them at the house. Surveillance footage clearly showed Melly getting into a gray Jeep, while Davis left separately in a red Mitsubishi. If the Jeep took a detour all the way to Pinroke Road, and the Mitsubishi headed towards Sunset Lakes. How did Melly end up at his house in Sunset Lakes with the people who were in the red Mitsubishi? According to Davis, their vehicle stopped along the way, and Melly got into the Mitsubishi.
We all use this phone sometimes. We all use each other's phones.
However, he was asleep and couldn't remember exactly where they had stopped. One thing he was certain of, though, was that when they arrived at the house, Melly was there with them. According to Davis, Melly was present when they received the news about the shooting and the death of their friends. While Melly appears to have an alibi, another crew member who was also there that day took the stand to testify. Trayvon Glass, YNW Juvie's producer. Initially, the defense opposed Trayvon's testimony, pointing out that he had been evading the police for the past 4 years and was a heavy marijuana user. Additionally, Trayvon was currently out on bail, and it seemed he was compelled to testify. However, what Trayvon revealed on the stand could seriously undermine Melly's alibi. According to his testimony, when they arrived at Melly's house in the red Jeep, the same people who had gotten into the car at the studio were the ones present at the house.
The state intends to show the evidence that the phone was there at the murder scene, and there were no other phones there. There is no one else out there at 4 a.m.
According to reports, Trayvon Melly was neither at the house nor with the others when news broke of the alleged drive-by shooting. Two people who were in the red Mitsubishi gave conflicting testimonies on the stand, raising the question, who was lying under oath? It looks like the jury will have a tough job sorting through all the evidence. Although it initially seemed like Melly may have incriminated himself through an Instagram text, the defense was able to create reasonable doubt that could potentially sway the jury. Still, a lot of the evidence points to Melly being at the crime scene, most notably his cell phone data. Beyond the cell phone records, several other people connected to the case appear to have used social media to suggest that Melly may have been involved in the murders, or at the very least played a role in the ongoing legal battle. Jamal Maurice Demons, better known as YNW Melly, has a long history of criminal activity. Growing up without a father figure and raised by his mother, he joined the Bloods gang at a young age. This early association led to his involvement in crime. At just 16, Melly was arrested for shooting at a group of students near Vero Beach High School. He was convicted of aggravated battery, discharging a firearm in public, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. He spent several months behind bars before being released on probation. The following year, he was arrested again for violating that probation and remained in custody until March 2018. Shortly after his release, he was arrested in Fort Myers for possession of marijuana, drug paraphernalia, weapons, and ammunition. He was released on bond. In January 2019, Melly was arrested once more for marijuana possession. The following month, he faced charges that would dramatically impact his life for the next 4 years.
Did there come a time that you were woken up before you got to the house?
Yes.
What happened?
We pulled over and that's when Melly got in the car with us.
However, he was asleep and did
On February 12, 2019, news broke that Jamel Demons, known as YNW Melly, was arrested in connection with the deaths of 2 of his close friends, Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sackchaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., aka YNW Juvie. Sackchaser and Juvie, aged 21 and 19 respectively, were tragically killed on October 21, 2018. Initially, it was believed the 2 had been victims of a drive-by shooting, as one of their friends, YNW Bortland, had driven them to the hospital in a Jeep Compass, claiming they had been shot while he was pulling off the freeway. However, months of investigation led law enforcement to suspect that Melly was actually responsible for the murders, and that Bortland had helped him stage the crime scene to look like a drive-by shooting. Both Melly and Bortland were arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. A police statement said, Jamal Demons, aka YNW Melly, and Cortland Henry have been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr., were killed on October 26, 2018. The investigation, supported by forensic evidence, concluded that Demons shot and killed Williams and Thomas Jr., and that Demons and Henry staged the crime scene to resemble a drive-by shooting. Following his arrest, Melly addressed his fans on Instagram, denying the allegations and confirming he would turn himself in. In a now-deleted post, he wrote, "To all my fans and supporters, no, I did not get locked up in Washington, but I am turning myself in today. I want you to know I love and appreciate every one of you. A couple months ago, I lost my 2 brothers to violence, and now the system wants to find justice. Unfortunately, a lot of rumors and lies are being spread, but no worries, God is with me and my brother YNW Bortland. Remember, it's a YNW family. I love you, YNW Sackchaser and YNW Juvie." The state of Florida later announced it would seek the death penalty against Melly, with prosecutors asserting they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered his friends. Court documents described the murders as heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and said they were carried out in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. It's important to note that Florida is one of 30 states where capital punishment remains legal. According to police, Bortland told investigators that after a late-night studio session, a car pulled up on his driver's side and opened fire as he drove off the freeway. He said he then rushed to a hospital for help, claiming the victims had been shot in a drive-by. However, forensic evidence disproved this story. Investigators found that both victims were shot from inside the vehicle, not outside. They discovered 8 bullet holes along the right side of the car where Sackchaser and Juvie had been seated, as well as shell casings inside the vehicle and in another location where they believe Melly and Bortland fired shots to stage the scene. CCTV footage showed Melly sitting in the left rear passenger seat that night. Autopsy reports confirmed the bullet wounds entered the victims' heads from left to right, contradicting Bortland's statement and disproving the drive-by shooting claim. Authorities also alleged that Melly and Bortland drove around with the victims' bodies in the car for some time before heading to the hospital. Bortland later admitted that Melly had switched vehicles at some point during that time. Prosecutors believe Melly killed his friends for financial gain. After his arrest, his lawyers strongly denied all charges, saying, "We disagree with the assertions made in the notice and look forward to disproving the charges." They emphasized that no murder weapon, no eyewitnesses, no DNA evidence, and no motive have been found. Following the arrest, many fans referenced Melly's 2017 breakout hit "Murder on My Mind," a song released 18 months before Sackchaser and Juvie's deaths. The track features vivid murder fantasies mixed with raw emotion, and was originally recorded while Melly served a 1-year sentence for a separate incident involving a shootout near his high school in Vero Beach, Florida. Shortly after his 2017 release, Melly returned to jail for probation violations. Prosecutors had previously used the song's lyrics against him in court. His lawyers believe this precedent may cause prosecutors to try to use the song again in the current trial, but they are seeking to prevent its use. Melly's defense also requested bail, arguing that he had no flight risk since all his family and friends were in Florida, and he voluntarily surrendered himself. However, the court denied bail, and Melly remained in jail awaiting trial for 4 years. The legal troubles didn't end there. A few weeks after his double murder arrest, Melly was named a suspect in the shooting death of Deputy Gary Chambliss. Witnesses said Melly and Bortland were involved in an altercation where a bottle was thrown at a passing car, leading to gunfire from the vehicle. Deputy Chambliss was tragically struck by a stray bullet during the incident.